Everyone talks about how divided we are as a nation, but most Americans, regardless of race or religion or economic status, most of us actually agree on our nation's founding principles because these principles represent the most basic human aspirations shared by all of us. So, if we agree on the most basic political principles, how can we be so politically divided? First, we have to realize that on most issues, our rights have to be limited to some degree to protect the rights of others. For example, on the economy, free markets and the right to build wealth are necessary for individual freedom, but at the same time, some government action is needed to maintain a level playing field and opportunity for all. Or on immigration, our nation was founded on the concept that all humans have the rights to freedom and the pursuit of happiness, but at the same time, we need an orderly immigration process to protect our health and education and criminal justice systems. The same thing applies to virtually every issue. There's always a balance. And finding that balance will never be easy or automatic because we'll always have differences of opinion. Some of us tend to be more conservative, others more liberal, and most of us are actually conservative on some issues and liberal on others. So there's always going to be disagreement and debate. But having said all that, if we use the modern democratic principles we all agree on as our guides to protect the rights of all Americans, then we can resolve these issues using the democratic process. The problem is we have small groups on the left and right who don't want balance or democracy. They want division and power. So on every single issue, they take an unbalanced approach, pitting the rights of some Americans against the rights of others. And in place of our modern democratic values, they use conservative or liberal ideology to tell us their side is absolutely and morally correct, and the other side is absolutely and morally wrong. So this gives us opposing ideological groups with no common ground fighting for control of our nation. And these groups are very active politically, especially in primary elections, controlling the parties and deciding who runs for office. That's why most politicians in office won't work with anyone from the other party or even talk about our common values because they know they'd be replaced in the next primary. One thing they do agree on, however, is their need for money as they battle for control of our nation. And they've worked together for years to provide economic advantages to their donors, which is causing the rising inequality and declining opportunity we see in our nation today. So these small groups are responsible for both our political and economic divisions. And really, this is already known. None of this is new information. The goal here is simply to encourage us to reject these groups and their divisive ideologies and instead stay committed to the core democratic principles we all hold in common. And if we do that, elected officials will have no choice but to follow our lead to get our votes. That's how we preserve our democracy. And finally, it helps to remember we're the first nation ever based on the concept of individual rights, which goes against thousands of years of history and the natural tendency toward group division and conflict that has always ended in oppressive rule and the extraction of wealth by the ruling class. Almost all of history is an example of this, and this tendency toward group division will always be there. So, if our modern democracy is going to work, we the people have to make it happen by rejecting those who are trying to divide us for their own benefit and instead working together to uphold our common democratic values of individual freedom and economic opportunity, something we've never fully done as a nation. So, if that makes sense, please share this with others.